The clerk, Mrs. Edith Aja, she approached me. She said, yes, the trend or the norm is that every month, every committee in the National Assembly, we are supposed to share the money. I said, how do you mean? She said, the money is usually shared. I, as the chairperson, I will take a part of it. I'll give some to my deputy, and the rest of the money will be shared amongst the staff of the local content committee. And I was like, did you say that is what happens? She said, yes, that is what my predecessor did, and that is what happens in all the committees in the National Assembly. I said, well, you know what? That money, if it's meant to service the operations of the committee, it's not meant to enrich my pockets. It's not meant to enrich the pockets of the staff. I would not want to collect this so-called impress. So I would advise that you keep that money in the account, and we build the money, we use it for whatever it's needed. If we have to buy office equipment, print stationaries, then we use that money. And I promise this, and the bank statement is here. It's the Sterling, it's an account under the name Senate Committee on Local Content, and the account is with Sterling Bank, and the account number is 00662082209. And when I resumed as chair of the committee, the account balance was 0. And then gradually, at the time I handed over to the next chairman, the account had 13,649,335 naira and 4 kobo. Anyone who has access to it, I have called the account number. You can check. We have gradually built the account. Basically, the money, I never took a kobo out of that in the name of impress. I never gave my deputy then, who is Senator Ede Dafinone, any impress. He can verify and attest to that. Neither did I allow any of the staff to take any money, because that is taxpayers' money, and the money was meant to service the office. Oh, but by the way, it would impress you to know that ever since I left office, the money has been withdrawn by the clerk. About 5 million was withdrawn. And 2 days after my removal again, 4.9 million was withdrawn. So as at today, the bank, that account that had 13 million has only 123,000.
All the atrocities that have been committed in the National Assembly, who punished them? We don't follow the budget process the way it is. They will budget money for instance, staff budget, money for training, money for clinic, money for sports, money for books, money. They collapse it. It is in the National Assembly I say hearing about collapse. What is collapse? Sir, both of you know what collapse is. Collapse. The money, now, allowances that are budgeted for National Assembly staff is collapsed. So, we as citizens, because we are still citizens, first, before we became National Assembly staff, and then you have no power to even go and hold a press conference, because we are sworn to oath of silence. So I can't even tell the world how I feel. Allowances that we are constitutionally, even, I put it in the Constitution this time, statutory allocation to the National Assembly staff, they collapsed it till now. Some people have retired. It takes over a year, 2 years for them to pay the National Assembly staff their retirement benefit before you start talking of pension. Go and see them. They look like scarecrows. Our former colleagues call us, direct us to beg for money for fuel. They are coming to the National Assembly. You see them standing at the junction into the National Assembly. They can't afford to fuel their cars. So apart from what the Constitution says, themselves, who is looking at the one they are collapsing and chopping? They chop their own, they chop our own. We are talking about oversight. How do you account for the fact that the flight ticket to go and oversight somebody was paid for that person by the agency? What are you coming to write? You go there, they tell you what to write, they give you money, they quarter you, they give you flight, and the members will come and fight over the money that they give to them. They will not give the clerk. They will not give the committee assistance that they take with. But it's not even the fact that they didn't give the clerk. Now you are compelled to write a report of what you did not see, what did not happen, and you lie. Me as a Catholic, I will just go for confession first. We did a public hearing last year, and then they committee called me to tell me that a consultant was employed to write a report. And then I asked the consultant, were you at the public hearing? He said, no. So what do you want to write? I, Ifoma, we give you material to write the report. I said, no, it's not going to happen. I will not work with you. I put my feet down and I told him I'm not going to work with you. And I sat down because they are looking at us as if we do not have capacity. Me, I'm just 2 steps out of National Assembly for retirement. So right now, my mother says she's not dancing so that people will give her money. It's so that they will see me. So I will say what I want to say. I sat down and I did a proper report of that public hearing. And I took it to the chairman. I said, this is the report. And they were looking at me like, you mean it? I said, yes. Oh, no, you have to change. I said, no, this is what happened. If you want to change it, you now go ahead and change it. But the original report is in my system. I don't use secretaries. I type my report myself. So if they want to change it, they should go ahead and change it. I am waiting.
The National Assembly is a den of corruption by a gang of unarmed robbers. The National Assembly cabal of today is worse than any cabal that anybody may find anywhere in our national governance system, ganging up to intimidate and threaten the life of whistleblower is deplorable and undemocratic. Once when I was president, I asked outside auditors, both normal and forensic, to audit the account of the National Assembly. They frustrated it on the basis of separation of power. They claimed they had oversight responsibility for their corruption and nothing can be done. It is like asking a thief to watch over himself. Members of the National Assembly pay themselves allowances for staff and offices they do not have or maintain. Once you are a member, you are co-opted and your mouth is stuffed with rottenness and corruption that you cannot opt out. What of the so-called constituency projects, which is a veritable source of corruption? These constituency projects are spread over the budget for members of the National Assembly, for which they are the initiator and the contractor directly or by proxy. And money will be fully drawn, with the project only partially executed or not executed at all.
If people perceive that the elections of 2027 will be violent, they will simply not come out in the election. And that gives birth to voter apathy, which is also another very massive ingredient for rigging an election. So if we understand this, you'll see that we need to counter that psychological warfare. We need to counter this impunity with legal actions. When I say legal actions, not necessarily lawsuit, actions that are backed by law. And number one of it is Peter Obi must write a petition to the IGP, Inspector General of Police, to the Nigerian police. He must write it. This is not about whether or not the IGP will do something or not do anything. It is very likely, as we have seen now, the IGP, the police, DSS, security agencies have been silent. Normally, if this were an opposition voice, they would have swung into action. It is after they have arrested the person that we will be hearing about it. But since it is their own person, it is becoming very clear that even the police is now partisan. But we cannot just leave it at that. We must prove it. We must test whether or not they will come out to say they are partisan. Then we will know we don't have a country. So simply writing a petition to the Inspector General of Police on this matter is a win. It is a deterrence. That's number one. Peter Obi, number two, must do a petition to the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal. What the governor did, what the Edo APC chairman did, what the commissioner did, they are gross violations of the Constitution of Nigeria And they are also gross violation of the Code of Conduct for Public Officers in Nigeria. And so, if Peter Obi lets this slide, yes, the Code of Conduct Tribunal is not a Father Christmas. They can't give what is not before it. Then it will simply mean that you have allowed impunity to grow wings. And very soon, it will begin to fly roughshod all over us. So number 2, Peter Obi must do a petition to the Code of Conduct Bureau and institute a case at the Code of Conduct Tribunal against the governor. You see, right now, he has immunity. But you see, if his case is successful at the Code of Conduct Tribunal, Governor Monday Okpebholo can be banned from running for a second term. Now, even if he doesn't get that judgment, the simple fact that this case is brought to the Code of Conduct Tribunal is a win for Peter Obi and for democracy, and it will serve as a deterrence for impunity in Nigeria. That's number 2. Number 3, Peter Obi must approach the Federal High Court in Edo State to seek an enforcement of his fundamental human rights. We have seen what the governor said. It was a campaign-style rally, and in fact, it was a rally, a campaign rally. And the governor said what he said. Even though the governor, through his aide, has come out to say, oh, they quoted me out of context. Take that video as evidence and use it to file a fundamental rights enforcement action, even claiming damages against the governor. Even if nothing comes out of it, simply filing that fundamental rights action is a win. It will serve as deterrence to impunity in Nigeria. That's number 3. Number 4, they are doing all of this because of local government elections. And what the APC state chairman of Edo State did is a gross violation of provisions in the Electoral Act 2022. It is, in fact, electoral offense, and the punishments there are prescribed. So if Peter Obi allows this to slide, what the governor said, what the commissioner said, what the APC state chairman in Edo State said, it will be feeding impunity fat. It will be providing a fertile ground for successful rigging of elections, not only in Edo State, but in 2027. So, Peter Obi, number 4, must approach INEC and file an official complaint against INEC for the actions of the APC state chairman in Edo State, so that he can also be banned. Number 5, this may sound far-fetched, but there is power of black and white, and we Nigerians must realize this. It may sound far-fetched, but Peter Obi can write an official protest letter calling on the Edo State House of Assembly to begin impeachment procedure against the governor of Edo State for gross violation of the Constitution. Yes, you may say nothing will come out of it, but it will be for the record. And the fact that Peter Obi simply writes that letter to the Edo State House of Assembly, pointing them in a direction that they don't want to turn their eye to, in the direction of the violation of the Constitution, which constitutes gross misconduct on the part of the governor of Edo State, that letter alone, simply writing it, will serve as a deterrence. And then, of course, if properly worded with the right prayers, this Edo State House of Assembly is bound to reply. And we will see where they will hide. Because really, constitutionally speaking, legally speaking, there is nowhere for the governor to hide. Forget all of the explanation that is trying to pay. But you see, these 5 options, if engaged, simply engaging them, is a win for democracy. It will serve as deterrence to impunity in 2027. It will serve as deterrence to rigging in 2027. Again, let me remind you, the reason governors are decamping to the APC is to secure Tinubu's rigging protection in 2027. So if any candidate is serious about defeating Tinubu and getting sworn in, that candidate must plan to counter rigging. Because defeating Tinubu is the easy thing. Getting sworn in, that is where the problem is. Peter Obi, in my opinion, defeated Tinubu in 2023. But is Peter Obi sworn in today? The answer is there for you and I to see. Because we know who the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is. It is Tinubu. In fact, he has even bragged about it, that we can talk all we want. He is the president. He will preempt us. He has bragged about that when he was in Benue. And it's something he always says. So defeating Tinubu, that is the easy part. Even though that can only happen in a free and fair election. But you see, getting sworn in, that's where the difficult part is. And any candidate that will defeat Tinubu and be sworn in must plan for rigging. Not plan to join the rigging, because you cannot out-rig Tinubu. It is planning to prevent the rigging that candidates should focus on. And I say it again to Peter Obi and anybody who cares to listen. It doesn't matter whether there is a coalition, whether Peter Obi is in coalition or he gets the ticket for the coalition. Whether Peter Obi is in a coalition or Peter Obi acts alone, if the election of 2027 is rigged, Tinubu continues beyond 2027 as the president of Nigeria. There is nothing the coalition can do if it is planning to rig out Tinubu. You can't rig out Tinubu. The reason why 2015 happened was because you had a Jonathan that was willing to give some element of free hand to INEC to behave the way they wanted. That is not the case with Tinubu. In 2015, you had something that looked like free and fair election. The signs we are seeing does not indicate that 2027, Tinubu intends to allow INEC to conduct free and fair elections. So I say again, anybody seeking to counter and unseat Tinubu in 2027 through the ballot can only do so by planning to counter and stopping and totally eliminating rigging. And there are ways to do that. We have solutions. The solutions cannot be dependent on the people that are responsible for the rigging in the first place. This is why I am skeptical about electoral reforms. Because you don't expect an Akpabio. I don't know. Do you expect an Akpabio to reform himself out of power? Do you? We saw what they did before they even gave us the 2022 Electoral Act. In fact, it was direct primaries that was there. They manipulated it and put indirect and put consensus in there. So many things that they did. Because they didn't want to reform themselves out of power. The Electoral Act 2022 is supposed to be the Electoral Act 2018. But Buhari refused to sign it because he didn't want to reform himself out of power. After he has gotten his second term, he now allowed what we saw as the Electoral Act in 2022. So with that in mind, do you really think that an Akpabio will want to reform himself out of power, or a Tinubu will want to reform himself out of power? Electoral Act is good. It is a way forward. But I say this, even if by some miracle the Electoral Act somehow passes and we have mandatory electronic transmission, collation of results from the polling unit straight to the website for all Nigerians to see in real time, even if you have that Electoral Act, do you trust that INEC will not come up with some magic, with some glitch? So if anybody is serious about countering rigging in 2027 and ensuring that the elections are free and fair and transparent, then there must be people-powered solution. That is where Project Eagle comes in. We must all unite behind Project Eagle. If not, it will be business as usual. They will rig us out and then we'll come crying, calling on international community that are actually the ones enabling the rigging behind the scenes. Calling on this, calling on that, whipping and saying all lies on judiciary. Judiciary is dead. Look, I don't want to cry after the 2027 elections. And so that is why I am talking about solutions that can prevent rigging. That is what any sane politician should be thinking about now. How do we prevent rigging? We have the solution. Project Eagle. People-powered, real-time election result monitoring. Collation, transmission from polling unit, real-time. Before INEC gets the time to rig, we have put the results out there. We have the right, the constitutional backing to do so. We as citizens may not have the right to declare a winner. Yes, only INEC has the power to declare a winner. But we as citizens of Nigeria, we have the right to collate the results that we collected from the polling unit and to present it to the public to see. We have that right. And that is why we came up and we have developed Election Watch. But we need polling unit marshals, at least 3 per polling unit, to volunteer to work this application and to make the election of 2027 really transparent. On top of that, we have Election Guard. Camp Guard, that will help us capture evidence. And then on top of that, we have Well Fund, we have Law Patrol, and then we have the best of them all, Abundance Party. So please, let's get serious about stopping election rigging. That is where our focus should be. We cannot allow impunity to go unanswered. The incidents with Edo State Governor and his aide and the APC state chairman in Edo State is a threat to free and fair election in 2027. I don't see now. I'm looking ahead. The same thing the governor of Benue did, the same thing Phyllis Monka did. If we do not respond through legally acceptable channels and means, more of this will come. And we may think that we are battling it in the social media, but you see, they are winning the psychological warfare for the hearts and minds of Nigeria. And that is where the danger, the real danger is. We must not allow it. Actions must be taken. The 5 options must be explored, must be explored by Peter Obi. And then join us to prevent rigging in 2027. Details are in the description below. Give us your contributions too. Let's work together on this.